So, hi everyone. My name is Jeffrey. This presentation. I'm a software engineer at Microsoft. I'm going over a topic that many of you probably didn't expect me to. How just to start off with, if I can advance the slides. In the mid-2000s, Microsoft decided that we needed some sort of documentation system to store lots of information that our development teams are going to be using. So it started as a one-node server that lived just in a physical machine in one of the Redmond offices. This soon became unwieldy and it needed to be moved to a larger system. And it started to just support one division of Microsoft and then later expanded to support other divisions. So now today we have about 12 wikis, and we have one wiki per vertical. So for instance, Azure is going to have a wiki, Windows, operating system has a wiki, Office has a wiki, Microsoft 365 has their own wiki, etc. And you pretty much just log in with Azure Active Directory. So every an AD account are Microsoft tenant. And these wikis are maintained by a dedicated team, which we call the Cloud Wiki team. A select few users on the wiki are granted standard MediaWiki administrator and bureaucrat rights. So we don't really manage this through any Active Directory security groups. We just do it on the fly. But usually there's not really a need to do it, so we don't really care about that much. And I guess the important part that you guys are probably most interested in about is that it's customized to meet our needs. Yeah, so again, our wikis support Windows, Office, Bing, Azure, M365, etc. So it basically serves all across the company. Now, the biggest question I know everyone is dying to ask is, why didn't we just use SharePoint or OneNote? I can't go into detail here, but I'll just say this, right? Hammers are used for screws. Whether you use nails or screws is up to you, right? But that's why one is for hammers, one are nails, one are screws. So do we still use SharePoint on OneNote internally? Well, of course we do, but they're used for different purposes. Usually each employee uses OneNote for themselves personally, and then OneNotes are shared to probably be like small Teams wikis. We use Microsoft Teams extensively at Microsoft, obviously. And there is a function in Teams where you can have like an embedded, what they call a wiki, which is just a OneNote that's edited by everybody. Whereas MediaWiki here is used for more org-wide content.
Can you switch to sharing the whole screen instead of your...
It is.
Oh, it is sharing the whole screen. Okay. It's showing both things. Maybe that's on purpose.
Oh, oops, sorry.
Maybe.
Yeah, okay. I see what you mean. All right, here, let me...
It's not a huge deal, but maybe that's an easy way.
Well, at least now you can see that I'm not like having any notes. I just am going off of this. So anyway, cool. Does this look better?
Well, no,
All right, sounds good. Back to the presentation. What is the tech stack that we use here? So, okay, cool, awesome. No? All right, so overall, we run MediaWiki on Azure App Service, and this handles both the deployment of our MediaWiki like deployment package and the actual hosting of the wikis. Each wiki is going to have MySQL, Elasticsearch, and again, we authenticate via Azure Active Directory. The general architecture of this wiki, and this is like a slightly older document, but essentially we have several tenants, right? And they all run under one app service plan. They all authenticate with their AAD, and each tenant, which is basically each wiki in this case, has their own database, their own Redis instance. And then within Microsoft, we use Azure Application Insights, which is like our telemetry system This is public for everyone to use, by the way. And then we use Key Vault for storing secrets and things like that. We also use Azure Storage for storing our images. So we don't store them like on a VM or anything. We actually use HoloVelt's Windows Azure Storage extension. But more on extensions later. And then, yes, this was written when Parsoid was still its own separate node application. Of course, now we use the built-in PHP Parsoid. So the biggest, I think, coolest thing about our usage of MediaWiki at Microsoft is we actually have used extensions, pardon the pun, but like extensively. We take a lot of open source extensions from the MediaWiki community whenever possible. In fact, people in this room have written extensions that Microsoft uses. And for internal needs, whenever extensions were not publicly available for our needs, we would just develop our own. So our intent was to increase productivity, increase engagement for editors of the wiki, and increase ease of use. What this means is, if you're working in an enterprise environment, you certainly don't want to be working on wikis all the time. Your job is to code, or your job is to develop your product. So why bother, editing the wiki at all? That is why Microsoft has spent significant effort in creating extensions to increase productivity, et cetera. But a little bit more on that later. This is a list I took from our about wiki. So we use quite a few extensions, some of which probably have no application outside of Microsoft. So like, for instance, the Microsoft Application Insights integration, I have never heard of Insights. But if you want to use it, we have that extension to do so. We have quite a few internal extensions, like the credential scanner. We have something like that for security purposes internally. But then we also have, extensions that you might not have seen, such as autosave, our cross-wiki search integration, Pandoc upload, page name verifier, page management dashboard, page info bar, and I'll go into a little bit more in detail about those. So first is our Pandoc upload extension. We have a lot of Word docs that need to be converted into wiki pages. So we added something on our upload page where you can just check a box. I know it's really hard to see on the projector. My apologies to people who are tuning in person. But essentially, there's this small checkbox here which says convert uploaded document to an article, and then you type in the box what article, name you want to have it be uploaded to, and then it uses Pandoc, once the file is uploaded, and it'll convert it into the wiki page. One huge thing that enterprises have been dealing with is who is a subject matter expert of a certain page? Who owns that page? And this is a huge, huge concept that has been like a persistent problem in MediaWiki, especially because there is currently no ubiquitous public extension that does this. So Microsoft, we took this matter into our own hands, and we implemented this internal extension that provides page ownership and page management capabilities that go beyond what MediaWiki typically offers. So we have quite a few features on this extension. First, we have an automated quality determination that, as you can see on top, it says quality is great. And this uses a few parameters, which I don't remember off the top of my head, that is pre-computed and is displayed over there. So it's not a person going in and saying, oh yeah, this quality is great. It goes in and uses like some numbers and some statistics to determine whether the quality is good or not. The last edit indication shows, when this page was last updated, and that's extremely important to ensure that the wiki page is is recent and up to date. It also displays the page owner and whoever last edited the page. And if you press those links, they would link to Outlook to send an email to the person who either owns the page or edited it, so you can ask them questions. We also do make use of discussion topics using structured discussions. So we don't have regular talk pages, we use structured discussions. And you can see that there's like 6 unread comments over here. And you can just press on that to go to the forum of the page, and people actually do respond on there at times, and it's a great way to talk around things. And yes, finally, there's also that trash can icon that you can use to mark the page for deletion, which would be then handled by an administrator. Each user also can go to a special page called the Page Management Dashboard, and this contains information about like what pages you've edited, view pages by who owns that page, view pages in a certain category, view subpages under a page. These are just kind of centralized together for people to be able to more readily access this information, because the name of the game is speed. We want to be able to find that documentation as quickly as possible. Another, I'm sorry, could you please not take pictures? Yes, thank you. My bad, but I would prefer we can talk about this later. So we have a system called, that we created. It's intended to increase engagement with the wiki. And I know why you want to take pictures. They're really, really cute, badges that you get for completing certain tasks. But this was, I think, implemented, I think in 2018, that will track basically, all the certain on the wiki, and it'll give you these badges. So like this is what I see when I go on the wiki. I haven't edited this wiki because I don't work in the operating systems group, but if I did, it'd be, I'd get a few badges. Some examples here are a cobweb cleaner. Whenever you edit an old page, you're considered a cobweb cleaner. Modification maverick. If you edit any page that has not been edited, this is less than 10 times, which should say fewer than 10 times. Sorry, grammar, right? Yeah, and then these are descriptions I pulled from the wiki itself. But yeah, you can basically see that these badges are intended to get you to do like wiki maintenance things that are really crucial to maintaining the health of the wiki and to keep it up to date. And I guess it just incentivizes engineers to help out with that. So yeah, these icons are really cute. I really love it. And I didn't come up with the names either. I think Cobweb Clearer, Ardent Arborist, these are pretty nice. What is the future of this though? Unfortunately, all good things must come to an end, as Nelly Furtado once said. So we are deprecating our MediaWiki websites in favor of a bespoke internal tool. So there's a few reasons behind this, actually a lot of reasons, but the main few reasons are we take web accessibility violations very, very seriously at Microsoft. I've never seen another organization. So we have an automated tool that goes through all of our websites, all of our front-facing websites, regardless of whether they are only for internal consumption or whether they are for external consumption for our customers as well. Accessibility violation, we have to go and fix it. It's not something that we can just linger around. In the past, we've been, there has been exemptions made because we can't just fix MediaWiki very quickly. It's a huge piece of foundation to fix that. So it's been quite a downer for us because we have to really realistically address all of these. It's difficult to make patches to core MediaWiki to resolve things like this. The typical way that we work at Microsoft is that if someone tells us to do something, we have to do it. It's going to get merged in, eventually. But when the control of who gets to merge in those patches falls in an external organization's purview, it makes the job of our engineers difficult when we're supposed to address, issues that need to be resolved per company policy, but are unable to be done so. And last but not least, I think this is something I just realized off the bat of my head, a few weeks ago, but we actually aren't supposed to be using Elasticsearch very much internally. It's actually prohibited.
Yeah.
I think it's a security risk for us. But anyway, some of the exact issues we encountered are, yeah, an accessibility review found over 200 bugs. The dev team was able to fix about 65, but as of, I guess even now, we still have 173 open accessibility bugs. There were 88 PRs apparently that were submitted to the MediaWiki open source community, but only 54 of them were merged. And the problem is that at Microsoft, we need all 88 to be merged. 54 is unacceptable to us. And all of these PRs span multiple MediaWiki projects. You know, it's core, it's extensions, and more. One thing you'll notice here is that we haven't gone and forked our own MediaWiki to run this. So we're really passionate about, you know, keeping up to date with real, you know, MediaWiki that the Wikimedia Foundation. And it has been discussed before whether we want to fork something or not, but ultimately it was decided not to because, you know, we're still able to add some contributions back to MediaWiki. It's just that it wasn't enough for us. Anyway, going back to this slide. So yeah, or no, that was the next point. Yeah, we decided not to fork a copy of it. And yes, because it's just a lot of effort to keep a fork. So some of the accessibility issues that we encountered were like related to the keyboard, right? If you press tab, the focus should be going to all the elements of the page, left to right, top to bottom. We take screen reader compatibility very seriously. It should be able to announce all the controls on the screen, including their status. If you're zooming in on something, the content should always be visible on the screen, not get overlapped. Color contrast, all the elements should be visible in high contrast mode, including focus. So these are, you know, we can actually detect all of these issues programmatically, and all 4 of those kinds of issues were found. I believe some of them were related to OOUI actually. These accessibility issues have been reported to Wikimedia Foundation, so they are aware of it, and recently did give a list of the violations that we found anonymized to, you know, redact any Microsoft confidential information. But still, the amount of violations that we found on MediaWiki was just too much for us. So that was one reason why we had to move on from using it. So I'm sorry to bear that bad news to you all, but yeah, we are now winding down our use of MediaWiki internally. We are no longer actively developing our wikis, and therefore we're also no longer developing our internal extensions. But as MediaWiki is open source, so can our extensions be. Thankfully, Microsoft in the past decade has moved towards open sourcing a lot of our code. You know, in 2019 or something, we acquired GitHub, and that reaffirms our company's commitment to open source. And we have so many extensions that we would love to share with the community. And I'm happy to announce that almost all of our internally developed extensions have been approved to be open source. The way this works is the original team, they've now moved on to different things. So they won't be able to assist with open sourcing these extensions. I don't work for that team, by the way. I work in another part of Microsoft, but as a Microsoft FTE, I have the ability to participate in the development and maintenance of our open source projects. So basically volunteers from within Microsoft will be able to help take an internal review of the extensions that we have so far and spruce them up, you know, remove anything that's confidential from them, and then we'll be able to release it publicly on GitHub. This will be purely done in our free time, so we really would appreciate your patience in doing so. I know this was first announced a few months ago, and still there has not been one extension that has been released yet, but that's because we're all busy with our day jobs, so we appreciate your patience with that. The logistics of this is when we release these extensions, they have to comply with our open source policies. So we've decided to release these extensions under the MIT license. they'll be hosted on GitHub under the official Microsoft organization, and it'll be on a monorepo to make compliance easy. So I'm not sure if everyone's familiar with monorepos, but basically it's saying that all of your code is actually going to just go on one big repository. And that diverges from the approach that other MediaWiki extensions take, which is every single extension has its own repo. And I understand that this is the way that we'd be doing this is not really the usual way that's releasing MediaWiki code, but it's because of our internal policies that our company policies that with which we must comply, that we've decided to make these decisions. And yes, the repository will be maintained by Microsoft FTEs. We're not allowed to simply release code out into the wild and say, have fun, good luck. We have to continue to maintain their, against like security vulnerabilities, things like that. Finally, editing these repos and contributing to them will require signing one of our contributor license agreements. Most contributions require you to agree to that, declaring that you have the right to and actually do grant us the ability to use your contribution. So you'll be able to access our open source extensions on github.com/MediaWiki-extensions. And I consulted with the community a little bit to just get an idea of what kind of extensions y'all want. So the page ownership thing I think is pretty popular. Pandoc upload, personal page view history, RBAC, which is our role-based access control that we use based on Azure Active Directory security groups. I think I said we don't usually do that, but it is done for one or two of our wikis. We also have like a Stack Overflow search extension that might come in handy. Yeah. So, any questions? Yes.
So, as far as the reasons why you can't use MediaWiki anymore, I'm not here. Is with it, particularly with web accessibility, are those deficiencies in MediaWiki core, or can you overcome them with a new skin that is totally accessible?
So the question is, are the accessibility issues within the core itself, or can we just make a skin over it? I'm not completely sure, but I imagine that OUI is cross-skin, so that really wouldn't help much. Rich, you had a question?
Two, if I can. One is along the lines of, you mentioned bugs and policy violations.
Mm-hmm.
Are they violations of web standards, or are they violations of internal Microsoft standards?
Web standards.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Rich's question was, what is it violating our internal standards or generally accepted web standards for accessibility? Yeah.
Okay. Are they accessibility, like, is it 508? I'm not sure, but
I believe so.
Like people with disabilities and okay.
That's right.
So that's all. I think that's all fair.
Yeah.
And then my next question is when you had your list of extensions, the one that really popped out to me was the cross wiki search.
Mm-hmm.
And I was wondering, is there any way that you could put that to the top of the list?
Cross wiki search. And Rich is interested in it. Yeah, sure. I'll take a look at it.
Okay.
Nick.
Thank you. So fixing accessibility doesn't feel like a huge project. Do you think the foundation will make it happen within the next year or so?
So Nick said accessibility doesn't seem like a huge project. Can the foundation make it possible? First of all, I'd like to actually say that accessibility is a huge pain to deal with. A lot of teams internally at Microsoft dread accessibility compliance because it takes up so much of our time. We agree it's very, very important, but it's also a huge time sink.
Just one out.
Unfortunately, we have decided to move forward as an organization away from Wikipedia or MediaWiki, and we will not be turning back on the decision. So unfortunately, it's a little too late for Microsoft, but I do hope that the Wikimedia Foundation can use what we have learned from our accessibility issues to be able to fix them in the future. Brian?
So not to go to the past, but to kind of reflect on it. I think a large part of the problem, I think there may have been in the past a communication breakdown about all this that is going on, because I suspect in the MediaWiki end, we're all not entirely sure what you're talking about with unclosed patches. Like, I'm aware of 3 currently, which is a very different perspective, I suppose, from the other side where it seems like there's a huge failure to reflect, and maybe there were back at the time, it just took a long time. Code review can be fun, and there's been lots of legitimate complaints about how code review works within MediaWiki,
Right.
and lots of problems. But I do think there was kind of a community,
Right.
and it's not necessarily that people are more, I think lines got crossed for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And